Yes, Brian always told me that an artist has to go around and flog his paintings like a rug merchant. You've got to show up at all of these openings. This is from Ghost of a Chance, which also concerns Christ and the whole subject of miracles and magic. The portents and signs that surrounded his birth had a sort of a flashback, retroactive tinge. Mages came bearing gifts. Did these gifts sustain the family in the ensuing years before Christ found his vocation? And what about poor John, married to Immaculate Mary? She must have been the worst lay ever to say, "Sorry, darling, not tonight. Got a sick headache." One may infer that long-suffering John had to hustle his saws and adzes, since Christ had not yet learned to make bread breed like rabbits. Difficult to believe that Christ was ever a full-time carpenter. He was arguing with people in the synagogues when he was 9 years old. So here he is, 30, time for a stint in the desert with Satan, you know. Well, of course, the devil's bargain is always a fool's bargain. Takes a modicum of common sense to say, "Piss off, Satan, and don't take me for dumber than I look, for Christ's sake." The question arises, did Christ actually commit the miracles attributed to him? My guess is that he did certainly perpetrate some of these acts. The Buddhists consider miracles and healing as dubious, if not downright reprehensible. Win Chamberlain's guru, I forgot his name, he said, "If you can, don't." The miracle worker is arbitrarily upsetting the natural order with incalculable long-range consequences and may often be motivated by self-glorification. Granted that Christ did work miracles, what he did was not so remarkable. Any competent magic man can heal sometimes, can't win them all, and cast out devils, especially the devils he installed in the first place. Many practitioners can do weather magic, but Christ established a miracle monopoly, which was codified by the church over the centuries. Miracles can only be performed by authorized personnel, subject to meticulous verification. We can't let these miracles get out of hand. Yeah. Put me sort of into a commandment mood. Thou shalt not be such a shit you do not know you are one. Is there anyone in this room who has never said to himself, "My God, I acted like an absolute shit"? If so, let him stand forth so that we may acclaim a Latter-day Saint. Don't anyone look at me. I recall an interview with some retarded reporter, and he asked me, "Mr. Burroughs, is there anything in your life you regret? Anything you would do differently if you had it to do over?" What did you say? No, don't repeat it. Well, I'm lucky if I get through a day without something I did wrong, something I regret. And you're talking about a lifetime. Think of the real mistakes. There are mistakes too monstrous for remorse to temper or to dally with. Can anyone place that quotation? Alan, you're disqualified. I told you. Anyone else? Anyone place it? It's Edward Arlington Robinson. He's really a very neglected poet. And he wrote a long poem about the author legend. Anyone never made mistakes like that and paid for his mistakes, I trust him little in the commerce of the soul. No experience. Young thief thinks he's got a license to steal. Young lawyer never botched a case. Young doctor never killed a patient. Thou shalt not drop an atom bomb or shit one out in the first place. Yes, I'm talking to you, Dr. Robert Oppenheimer, known as Opie to his friends. If you got an atom bomb for a friend, your only enemy is a dud. When Opie heard the good news about Hiroshima, he said, "Thank God it wasn't a dud." What God are you thanking for Hiroshima, Oppenheimer? And Truman said, God has given us the atom bomb, and he will show us how to use it. Oh, God. It is to be remembered that on the occasion of the first atomic explosion at Alamogordo, New Mexico, that translates roughly as fat soul. So on this fat occasion, Robert Oppenheimer, the founding father, entertained the possibility of a chain reaction that would ignite the atmosphere. You're theorizing way over our heads, Opie, said the general, where there were a lot of generals around. And speaking for the Pentagon, I don't like it. And 20 years later, Opie still believed that nuclear fission would destroy the planet. We are become death's shudder of worlds, he said. He said it on TV and wiped a tear out of the corner of his eye with one long, skinny finger. Dying of cancer at the time. And various highly placed officials appeared to say it was a very difficult decision. Decision to drop the atom bomb on Hiroshima. And I thought, God defend us all from a difficult decision in the Pentagon. Nobody does more harm than folks who feel bad about doing it. So one goes on signing petitions and supporting nuclear freezes. What else can one do? One sounded a word of warning. Brian Geisen had the all-purpose nuclear bedtime story. The all-purpose bedtime story, in fact. Some trillions of years ago, a sloppy, dirty giant flicked grease from his fingers. One of these gods of grease is our universe on its way to the floor. Splat. Clean it up, woman, growled the giant, for he was a male supremacist. Meanwhile, life such as it is goes on. I am frequently asked if I have any words of advice, young and old. Well, I think the most important is this, that good things and bad things come in streaks. So plunge when you're winning and fold when you're losing. You got a winning streak, ride it, but don't ride it too far and too fast, or you can hit a losing streak doing 90 miles an hour, and that isn't good. You never know. That's when your streak ends. If you did, it would be too easy. Never interfere in a boy and girl fight. Never. Beware of whores who say they don't want money. The hell they don't. What they mean is they want more money. Much more money. If you're doing business with a religious son of a bitch, get it in writing. His word isn't worth shit. Not with a good Lord telling him how to fuck you on the deal. If, after having been exposed to someone's presence, you feel as if you'd lost a quart of plasma, avoid that presence. You need it like you need pernicious anemia. We don't like to hear the word vampire around here. We're trying to improve our PR. Build up a kindly, avuncular, benevolent image. Interdependence is the key word. Enlightened interdependence. Life in all its rich variety, take a little, leave a little. However, by the inevitable logistics of the vampiric process, they always take more than they leave. And why indeed should they take any? Sure, a wart is better than a cancer, but who wants either one? Avoid fuck-ups. Fools, I call them. You all know the type. Everything they have anything to do with turns into a disaster, no matter how good it may sound. They're trouble for themselves and everyone connected with them. A foo is bad news and it rubs off. Don't let it rub off on you. Do not proffer sympathy to the mentally ill. It's a bottomless pit. Tell them firmly, I am not paid to listen to this drivel. You are a terminal fool. And avoid confirmed criminals. They are a special malignant strain of fool. Look what Norman Mailer got himself into by involving himself with that archetypical criminal fool, Jack Henry Abbott. Quote from this book, I would sell my soul for freedom, but I won't give an honest day's work or behave myself for an instant for that same thing. I think Abbott is the foolish of the fools. Now, some specialized advice. If there are any aspiring young thieves in the audience, don't ever try and hit a Chinaman. He will die before he gives up his money. I remember a young hoodlum named Eddie who learned the hard way. Eddie and two other bums need some money on a Saturday night, so they decide to heist this Chinese laundry. Below street level, one little skinny chink down their ironing shirts. All they have to do is flash a gun and he will fork over, or so they think. But instead he comes up with a meat cleaver screaming, "Pluck you, pluck you, pluck you." And they wisely heed the words of the immortal bard, stay not on the order of your going, but go at once. Out in the street, this one kid is laughing about, you can't win them all, and imitating the Chinaman, "Fuck you, fuck you." What are you looking at me so funny for? Man, you got a meat cleaver stuck in your head. The kid reaches up and feels the meat cleaver. Passes out cold. So they steer him to a hospital and pour him through the door. Now, some of you may encounter the devil's bargain if you get that far. Any old soul is worth saving, at least to a priest. But not every soul is worth buying, so you can take the offer as a compliment. Try his money first, all the money there is. So who wants to be the richest guy in some cemetery? So money won't buy it. Not much left to spend it on. Abraham's getting too old to cut the mustard. Well, time hits the hardest blows, especially below the belt. So how's a young body grab you? Like 3-card Monty. Pee under the shell. Now you see it, now you don't. Old fool is gonna rush out and realize all his wet dreams. Haven't you forgotten something, Gramps? In order to feel something, you have to be there. You have to be 18 years old. And you aren't 18, you're 78. You just simply are not there. Old fool sold his soul for a strap-on. Well, I always try the easy ones first, so how about an honorable bargain? You always wanted to be a doctor. Well, now's your chance. Right back there in medical school. Why, you can become a great healer and benefit humanity. What's wrong with that? Just about everything. There are no honorable bargains that involve exchange of quality merchandise like souls for quantitative merchandise like time. Yeah, it's always a bargain for him, the devil's bargain. A wise old junk pusher told me years ago, watch whose money you pick up and watch whose time you pick up. Cambridge, Mass., 1938, that was the year of the big hurricane. Kells Evans and your reporter were writing a shipwreck story based on the sinking of the Titanic. The Titanic was supposed to be sink-proof. It was all divided up into segments, so just you have a leak here, the other compartments will keep the thing afloat, but the iceberg just sliced right through all the compartments like a can opener. The ship went down in 3 hours with 1,200 passengers. The captain went down with the ship on this occasion. It was the maiden voyage. There were a number of rich and fancy people on board. I think it was Mr. Astor. He and his valet put on full dress suits and said, "We're going down like gentlemen." Imagine a frame of mind like that, going down like gentlemen. Glub, glub, glub. This old gang Colonel Clint Smith, who was right on the deck when the Titanic went down, got clear and latched onto a chicken coop and survived. And that's the name of the game. In our story, Twilight's Last Gleamings, the ship's captain puts on women's clothes and rushes into the first lifeboat. And also in this lifeboat is the ship's doctor. There is a precedent for this. I quote from a contemporary chronicle. Somewhere in the shadow of the Titanic disaster slinks a cur in human shape. Today, the most despicable human being in all the world. In that grim midnight hour, he found himself hemmed in by the band of heroes whose watchword rang out across the deep, women and children first. What did he do? He scuttled to the stateroom deck, put on a woman's skirt, a woman's hat, and a woman's veil, and picking his crafty way, he filched a seat in one of the lifeboats and saved his skin. His identity is not yet known, though it will in good time. This man still lives. Surely he was born and saved to set for men a new standard by which to measure infamy and shame. You get to think about it, you wonder how, if his identity is not yet known, they know about this at all. Something really funny there. Anyway, this story commemorates the first appearance of Dr. Benway, written in collaboration with Kells Evans, Twilight's Last Gleamings. The SS America off Jersey coast. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no cause for alarm. We have a minor problem in the boiler room, but everything is now under sound effects of a nuclear blast. Explosion splits the boat. A paretic named Perkins screams from his shattered wheelchair, "You pithy-ass son of a bit!" Second-class passenger Barbara Cannon lay naked in a first-class stateroom. Stuart Hudson stepped to a porthole. "Put on your clothes, honey," he said. "There's been an accident." Dr. Benway, ship's doctor, drunkenly added 2 inches to a 6-inch incision with one stroke of his scalpel. "Perhaps the appendix is already out, doctor," the nurse said, peering dubiously over his shoulder. "I saw a little scar." "The appendix out? I'm taking the appendix out. What do you think I'm doing here?" "Perhaps the appendix on the left side, doctor. That happens sometimes, you know." "Stop breathing down my neck. I'm coming to that. Don't you think I know where an appendix is? I studied appendectomy in 1904 at Harvard. He lifted the abdominal wall and searched along the incision, dropping ashes from his cigarette. Thrust a red fist at her, and get me a new scalpel. This one's got no edge to it. The doctor flattened against the wall, a bloody scalpel clutched in one hand. The patient slid off the operating table, spilling intestines across the floor. Sir, I can't be expected to work under such conditions. He swept instruments, cocaine, and morphine into his satchel and tilted out of the operating room. Mike Dwyer, politician from Clayton, Missouri, rushed into the first-class lounge where the orchestra, coke, junked, and pilled to the gills wallowed in their instruments. Play the Star-Spangled Banner, he bellowed. You trying to corn somebody, Jack? Mike crossed to the jukebox, selected the Star-Spangled Banner with Fats terminal at the electric organ, and shoved home a handful of quarters. By the dawn's early light, Dr. Benway pushed through a crowd at the rail and boarded the first lifeboat. Y'all all right, he said, seating himself among the women. I'm the doctor. Oh, say, can you see Captain Kramer putting the finishing touches to heavy makeup? Now a green cloche hat and a fox stole. Rather Sadie Thompson, he decides, slipping a .32 automatic into his handbag. Or the ramparts we watched. Radio operator Finch mixed a bicarbonate of soda and belched into his hand. Yes, America. SS America, SOS, Goddamn captain's a brown artist. SOS, off Jersey coast, might smell us. SOS, son of a bitch and crew. SOS, comrade Finch, comrade in a pig's ass. SOS, The captain stepped into the radio room and shot Finch in the back of the head. He shoved the body aside and smashed the apparatus with a chair. By the twilight's last gleamings, the captain stiff-arms an old lady and fills the first lifeboat. The boat is lowered jerkily by male passengers. Dr. Benway casts off. The captain pats his bulging suitcase and absently looks back at the ship. Obviously, he cleaned out the safe. Our flag was still there. It happens in every shipwreck, something folks don't like to talk about. People keep trying to get in the lifeboats that are already full, and someone has to cut their fingers off with a butcher knife. In our story, a paralyzed paretic named Perkins, paralyzed from the waist down anyway, is the instrument of destiny. Somebody gives him the knife and tells him what he has to do. By the rocket's red glare, a cry goes up from the tilting deck. Bodies hurtle around the boat. A hand reaches out and closes on the boat side. Spring-like, Perkins brings down the knife. The hand slips away. Finger stubs fall into the boat. Attaboy, comrade, don't let 'em swamp us. The crew pull on the oars. Perkins works feverishly, cutting on all sides. His false teeth fly out with the speed of a snapping snake. He snaps them back into his mouth. Bastard thunder bitches, bastards thunder bitches. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Barbara Cannon showed your reporter her souvenirs of the disaster. A life belt autographed by the crew and a severed human finger. Oh, no, she said, I feel sort of bad about this old finger. For the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. This is folkloric text is from the Federal Narcotics Hospital at Lexington, Kentucky. There is an exclusive wing of Lexington reserved for the do-rights, who are considered good rehabilitation prospects. They get better rooms and more medication, a much slower withdrawal. The do-right always shows up with letters from his employer, clergyman, congressman, you know the type, balls all over himself to light the boss's cigarette. The doctor walks into the ward. Rather warm in here. As one man, the do-rights break out in a sweat and rush around opening windows. A bit cold in here, isn't it? Immediately, the do-rights see their breath in the air, snatch blankets and bundle themselves up to a chorus of chattering teeth. Front office, brown nose, fink to the bone. Doctor, when I die, I want to be buried right in the same coffin with you. You're the finest, the most decent, the most deeply humane man I've ever known. Putting you down for additional medication, son. Thank you, doctor. Pusher should receive the death penalty. If such stuff are do-rights made. It's the old army game. From here to eternity, get there firstest with the brownest nose. While down in the dim gray wards and day rooms where the do-wrongs hawk and spit and shiver and vomit, fucking Croker wouldn't give me a goofball. He asked me what the American flag means to me. I tell him, soak it in heroin, Doc, and I'll suck it. He says I got the wrong attitude. I should see the chaplain and get straight with Jesus. And then, with the tears streaming down their lousy pink faces, the do-rights leap up as one man and bellow out the Star-Spangled Banner. More folklore. Daddy Longlegs looked like Uncle Sam on stilts, and he ran this osteopathic clinic outside East St. Louis and took in a few junkie patients. For 2 notes a week, you could nod out in green lawn chairs and look at the oaks and grass stretching down to a little lake in the sun. And the nurse moves around with a silver tray feeding the junk in. We called her mother, wouldn't you? So Ben went in after a rumble in Dallas involving this aphrodisiac ointment, and Doc goofed on Ether and mixed in too much Spanish fly and burnt the prick off the police commissioner. So we come to Daddy Longlegs to cool off, and we find him cool and casual in a dark room, potted rubber plants, and a silver tray where he likes to see a week in advance. The nurse shows us to a room with rose wallpaper, and we have this bell. Any hour of the day or night, just ring, and Mother charges in with a loaded hypo. One day we are sitting out in the lawn chairs with lap robes. Fall day, leaves turning, sun cold on the lake. Doc picks up a piece of grass. Junk turns you on vegetable. It's green, see? Now, a green fix should last a long time. So we check out of the clinic and rent a house, and Doc starts cooking up this green junk. And the basement is full of tanks, smell like a compost heap of junkies. So finally he draws off this heavy green fluid and loads it into a hypo big as a bicycle pump. Now we find a worthy vessel, he says. So he flushed out this old goofball artist and tell him it is pure Chinese H from the Ling Dynasty. And Doc shoots the whole pint of green right into the main line. The yellow jacket turns fibrous gray-green and withers up like an old turnip. And I say, I'm getting out of here, me. And Doc says, an unworthy vessel, obviously. Withdraw from the case. Actually, I've been reading a lot of these doctor books lately, and Benway sort of shines as a model of competence and responsibility. Compared to what actually goes on in hospitals. Well, here's a sort of a typical doctor. This is one of the better of the lot, Mike Todd. So anyway, he has fallen for a young nurse, and he has proposed, and she is accepted. Then she comes down with bone cancer. They have to take off the left leg. Scalpel's crossed, it hasn't spread. Does he still want her? She tells him to take 5 days and think it over. He does. With bleak clarity, he sees the years to come. Oh, yes, he can see where his own interests are involved. He is striding towards surgery, a big man on complex now. It takes guts to practice surgery, he says, and it sure does. Striding towards surgery, though the patient is clearly terminal. He would operate on a mummy. And she is shamming along on a new prosthetic. Will you shake the lead out? I'm doing the best I can, darling. Why don't you go back to her crutches, he thinks irritably. Aloud, he says, Why don't you jet propel on your stinking farts? Admittedly, his words are somewhat unkind. But cancer does stink. Of course, it is not her fault that she is in this disgusting condition, or is it? His mother always said, son, in this life, everyone gets exactly what they want and exactly what they deserve. People tend to believe it so long as they are getting what they think they deserve. Incongruously, Mike thinks of an old joke, the eternal traveling salesman, protagonist of the eternal dirty joke. The salesman spots an attractive woman in the club car. As fate would have it, she is in the lower bunk just opposite his upper bunk, and he has given her the eye. She takes off her wig. She pops out a glass eye. She spits out her false teeth. She unhooks her wooden legs. Looks up at him pertly and says, Is there anything you want? You know what I want. Take it off and throw it up here. He starts laughing, you see, and she demands to know why, and finally he tells her. She hits him with her prosthetic, requiring 5 stitches. Yeah, he's been thinking it over, darling, and it's Colonel Bradfield's job to investigate the practical potentials of ESP, sorcery, witchcraft, the lot. He doesn't give a shit for natural laws or what is and isn't possible. All he cares about are results. Bring me the ones that work. What you bring this old beast in here for? A withered old man dressed only in a loincloth, stiff with yellow piss stains, stinking like a snake cave in spring, sits down in a leather armchair. Fumigating the chair will be inadequate, the colonel decides. He's a natural chief. He can throw an operative curse. I don't doubt he can kill by proximity. He's got a good track record, chief. Sure, and 80 years in the making. So how'd he get that way? To be a magician, you got to be inhuman in some way. Easiest is to eat your own shit and eat it steady. You eat it in and shit it out and eat it in again. It gets eviler and dirtier, a stink nobody can smell and live. But who am I to be critical? Trouble is, it just isn't practical. But Chief, no way can be traced to us. The hell there isn't. You think the Ivans aren't into this shit up to the ass? They can make up the evidence. We all do it. No way to trace it. Big deal. 80 shit-eating years to turn out an old human centipede. Can throw a curse if you hold him steady on target. I can train an agent in hours with untraceable poisons and toxins. Electronic devices to produce irrhythmical heartbeats. But, Chief, we can't just throw a thing like this away. And indeed, where can we throw it? It's radioactive. Get it out of here for starters and take the chair out with it. Kim has never doubted the existence of gods or the possibility of an afterlife. He feels that immortality is the only goal worth striving for. He knows it is not something you automatically get for believing in a dogma like Christianity or Islam. It is something you have to work and fight for like everything else in this life or another. The most precarious, short-sighted, and arbitrary immortality blueprint was drafted by the ancient Egyptians. First, you have to get yourself mummified, and that is very expensive, making immortality a monopoly of the truly rich. And you also need a reservation in an accredited necropolis. So all the new rich is trying to crack a good necropolis, you see, like a good country club. The whole society revolves around death. Extraordinary. All their art was funerary. And then your continued existence in the Western lands, that's Egyptian paradise, is entirely contingent on the continued existence and welfare of your mummy. That is why they had their mummies protected by potent curses and hid good. And also, you have to know the right names. Page after page in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you shall not pass until you pronounce my name. There is plain G.I. Horus. He's got enough vitality to survive his physical death. That's known as the first death. He won't get far. He's got no mummy. He's got no names. He's got nothing. So what happens to a bum like that, a nameless, mummyless asshole? The demons will swarm all over him at the first checkpoint. He will be dismembered and thrown into a flaming pit where his soul will be utterly consumed and destroyed forever, while others, with sound mummies and the right names to drop in the right places, sail through to the Western lands. However, there are some second-class souls who just barely squeeze through. Their mummies is not in a good sanitary condition. These creeps are relegated to flophouse accommodations just beyond the last checkpoint, where they can smell the charnel house disposal ovens from their skimpy balconies. You see that sign the bartender snarls? Maggoty mummies will not be served here. Might as well face facts. My mummy's going downhill. Cheap job to begin with. God, maggots is crawling all over it, the way that demon guard sniffed at me this morning. Transient hotels. So here you are at a luxury condominium deep in the Western lands. You got no security. Some disgruntled former employee sneaks into your tomb and throws acid in your mummy's face, or sloshes gasoline all over it and burns the shit out of it. Uh-oh, someone is fucking with my mummy. And brother, you are fucked. Mummies are sitting ducks. No matter who you are, what can happen to your mummy is a pharaoh's nightmare. The dreaded mummy bashers. grave robbers, scavengers, floods, earthquakes, fires, explosions. My God, the worst thing can happen to a mummy. All mummies is strong pacifists. No nukes is good nukes to a mummy. Consider the impasse of a one-God universe. He's all-knowing, all-powerful. He can't go anywhere since he is already everywhere. Can't do anything since the act of doing presupposes opposition. His universe is irrevocably thermodynamic, having no friction by definition. So he has to create friction, war, fear, and death to keep his dying show on the road. Sooner or later, look, boss, we don't have enough energy left to fry an elderly woman on a flea-bag hotel fire. Well, we'll have to start baking it. Joe looks after him sourly and mixes a bicarbonate of soda. Sure, start baking it and leave the details to Joe. Look, from real disaster you get a pig of energy. Sacrifice, heroism, grief, separation, fear, and above all, violent death. Life in all its rich variety. So from an energy surplus, you can underwrite the next one. But the first one is a fake. You can't underwrite a shithouse. Try to explain to Almighty God where his one-God universe is heading. Asshole doesn't know what buttons to push or what happens when you push them. Abandon ship, God damn it, every man for himself. Like the great Gatsby, Kim believes in the green light, the orgiastic future. He believes in a magical universe, unpredictable, spontaneous, alive. A universe where anything is possible. A universe of many gods, often in conflict. So the paradox of an all-knowing, all-powerful God who nonetheless permits suffering, evil, and death does not arise. We got a famine here, Osiris. What happened? Well, you can't win them all. I'm hustling myself. Can you give us immortality? I can give you an extension, maybe. Take you as far as the first checkpoint. You'll have to make it from there on your own. Most of them don't. Figure about 1 in a million. And biologically speaking, that's very good odds. I think we might all believe in a magical universe because that's about the only thing that could save spaceship Earth at this point. A miracle. Thank you. The hospital lavatory has been locked for 3 hours solid. I think they're using it for an operating room. Nurse, I can't find her pulse, doctor. Dr. Benway, cardiac arrest, goddammit. He looks around and picks up a toilet plunger. He advances on the patient. Make an incision, Dr. Limp, he says to his appalled assistant. I'm going to massage the heart. Dr. Limp shrugs and begins the incision. Dr. Benway washes the suction cup by swishing it around in the toilet bowl. Nurse, shouldn't it be sterilized, doctor? Very likely, but there's no time. Sits on the suction cup like a cane seat, watching his assistant make the incision. You young squirts couldn't lance a pimple without an electric vibrating scalpel with automatic drain and suture. All the skill is going out of surgery, all the know-how and make-do. Did I ever tell you about the time I performed an appendectomy with a rusty sardine can? Once I was caught short without instrument one and removed an uterine tumor with my knee. That was in the upper effendi, and besides, the wench is dead. Dr. Lamp, the incision is ready, Doctor. Dr. Benway forces the cup into the incision and works it up and down. Blood spurts all over the nurse, the doctors, and the wall. The cup makes a horrible sucking sound. I think she's gone, Doctor. Well, it's all in a day's work. He walks across the room to a medicine cabinet. Some bestial drug addict has cut my cocaine with Sandy Flush. Nurse, send the boy out to fill this RX on the double.